An emotional weekend across English football this past weekend with the passing of Sir Bobby Charlton got us thinking in Room 442 about those figures in sport, in soccer specifically, who we never saw play, but still have a large piece of real estate in our football fandom. Because for me, Bobby Charlton was a guy that retired well before I started watching football, but he was still one of those men in the World Cup in the 60s. Which, just before you started joking, I never watched, never saw, I wasn't born. But he was such a huge figure commercially. He was on TV every week. You knew who Bobby Charlton was, and then Sir Bobby Charlton. You knew what he meant to that country. Maybe England's greatest ever footballer. Maybe England's most famous footballer until David Beckham came around, and a different world, of course. But he meant a lot to me, even though I was a Liverpool fan, not a Man United fan. What he did for England and how he was just revered so much in that country, he really stood out to me. So it was a sad weekend. Do you have any similar footballers or even athletes in general that you never saw but that have a big part in your heart?
Yeah, probably Maradona and Pele when it comes to football. Didn't get to watch them, obviously. But just one thing on Bobby Charlton, I knew who he was. I knew what he meant to Manchester United, but I didn't know what he accomplished in his career. Ballon d'Or, World Cup,
Euro,
did everything with Manchester United.
European Cup, yeah.
And no English player has even come close to doing that since then, right? So I didn't realize what a figure he actually was on the pitch. I just knew how much he meant to Manchester United. You can even go back to have a discussion about the Munich disaster and surviving and then playing after that and being able to even play after that. So the guy left an incredible legacy behind, and I had no idea. And I wish, that while these people were here, and I say this all the time with tons of athletes, but we got to appreciate them, even if they're not playing, but to understand what they've done to the game, what they've done in their lives. And Bobby Charlton falls right into that category.
I think there's a far more toxic fandom nowadays as well, though, right?
Way too much.
If he played nowadays, there might be that other side that just despise him, but that wasn't the case in England. For whatever reason, he was England's Bobby, even though he played for United his whole career.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just a different era now. It's a nasty era now, unfortunately, right? Because a Ronaldo or a Messi, who are beloved by certain fan bases, are despised by other fan bases, which is ridiculous.
And despised by their own fan bases at times.
At times, yeah. Why can't we just love these guys, appreciate them?
I agree. Yeah, we only do it when they're gone.
Social media doesn't help, though, right? Being able for, individuals to hide behind the screen and then say whatever they want. Also to react immediately to things. That's completely changed everything in the world, not just sport, right? But yeah, for me, it has to be Pele and Maradona as well. I think specifically Maradona a bit more just because he was closer to when I was born. I don't know. And Pele also, he played in such a different time of football, like Bobby Charlton, exactly. But Maradona, man, he was the guy. The way he, I go back and I'll just sit on YouTube and watch Pele highlights or Maradona highlights and just be like, this was impeccable. Also, I think the way he dressed in the 80s too, there was just so much, I don't know how to explain it, but it was really just vintage football. And I don't know, we were a bit unlucky missing that, but at the same time, how blessed are we that we have Messi and Ronaldo?
Yeah, now, right? I wonder if younger kids now are thinking of them the same way that we're now thinking of. Even myself, I never saw Pele play. I did see Maradona play. I remember Maradona 86, obviously, for obvious reasons. But yeah, I don't know, that romantic kind of time in your life when you're a kid and you watch sports. It meant more to me then than it does now, because these guys couldn't do any wrong unless they were handballing in quarterfinals of World Cups.
He was also incredible in that World Cup. I know the handball, that's historic, but the guy was immaculate.
Well, and you know what? It's so true, because I've never ever in my sporting fandom felt fear that I felt before that match, because Maradona had torn up the 86 World Cup, torn it up, right? And just seeing him out on the pitch against England, I thought, there's no way we can stop this guy. It's impossible. Yeah. And of course, he scored that incredible goal.
Yeah.
So I still get kind of goosebumps and nervous thinking about that tournament, because of how I was, 12 years old, 11 years old, right? Man, I haven't had that since.
I think social media has killed fandom.
Yeah.
Because back then, Maradona, Bobby Charlton, Pele, you can name Magic Johnson in the NBA, and even go back to Wayne Gretzky in the NHL. You didn't get to see these guys as often. You didn't know what they were doing in their day-to-day. You didn't hear them on podcasts and doing a million interviews and talking about their personal life and seeing them go to the grocery stores. You only got to watch them in football maybe once or twice a week.
Maybe.
And
Yeah,
so
if
it
you're
was that much
lucky.
more special, right? Like it was an appointment viewing. Like I need to see Bobby Charlton play. I have to see it. And you didn't know so much about their lives, right? So you weren't, and you didn't get to watch every single game that was on that weekend.
It was a mystery, right?
It was such a mystery.
It's a great point. When the European Cup would play or the World Cup would play, you see these players you'd heard of and read about, but you hadn't seen them play because the games just weren't on television, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously Charlton and Pele going a little bit further back, but even the Ruud Gullits and the Marco van Bastens in the late 80s, guys that I read about in all my football magazines. I didn't know much about them apart from that, but then I saw them at Euro 88.
That's so wild.
AC Milan, and oh my God, it's just amazing.
I've never even thought about that, thinking about a player or learning about a player and then only reading about them and not being able
that was the best. That's why magazines were so important.
I had the magazines, but I think I'm just like past all of that. Like I can't really recall in my life like reading about a player but not being able to like at least go look up YouTube highlights. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
I know,
I think
I hear you.
I've always been in that generation, but like that's so interesting and that makes me like
I actually hate it. I know we're supposed to know about all these players and what's going on, but a part of me hates it because I love discovering new players. I love who is this guy, not knowing about him, but I have to watch his games now or her games to find out who this is and how good this person is. And then you're thinking about your own club. Oh, we got to sign this player. It's just it's a different time. You go into every single match. Let's say, I don't watch a lot of La Liga. If I'm watching Barcelona against Girona
Girona and
I
Catalan.
thought it's not it's G.
It's he in Spanish, G in Catalan, and they're in
Girona.
Catalan.
I already go into that match reading 20 previews, and I know who plays for who. So I already have my own idea and my own what's the word I'm looking for?
Bias.
Yeah, my own bias on certain players, even though I haven't even watched them play before because I've read someone write about them. So it's just a lot's changed.
But
I miss that romanticism.
Yeah, so do I. 100%. At the same time, if you told 11-year-old James or Jamie back in those days,
Jamie,
or 10-year-old Birdie, you called Birdie back in those days,
Yeah,
weren't
I
you?
was. Yeah.
You were, weren't you?
No.
Oh, well, that's for the sake of argument. You called Birdie. Back
Okay.
then. Little Birdie. That one day you can watch every single match
yeah,
on television live or on this box we call a computer.
Mm-hmm.
Every single game. We were going, are you kidding me? Yeah, sign me up. We're so much better off now
Yeah,
in so many ways, but we lost a little bit of soul.
I agree.
I think because of it.
100%, man.
for sure. You also like football fans these days. There's a lot of plastic fans. You know what I mean? Like I think nowadays it could be like trendy to be a fan of, let's say, Manchester City, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think back. I almost said back in the day, James.
Well, yeah, the 1990s?
What's back in the day? Yeah.
1990s for
I
her,
want to hear
probably.
this. What's back in
No,
the
I'm
day?
saying-
You're not
about-
too
I'm
far off
not
30,
saying-
young lady.
Still the youngest in the room. No, just previously, like you'd be a fan of football because you actually cared. You took the time to watch the games. It wasn't like you had so much accessibility, but now it's very much like the jerseys and the fashion of it all. And then, having access to all the games.
That's
like,
a good point.
It is so different. Like also, can we not say that like football is very trendy? Like to
Oh,
be
yeah.
a football fan, like I'm a football, like wearing all the jerseys, having limited edition kits or like special editions. Like you talk to these people and you realize, oh my goodness, like you don't watch a single match on the weekend.
That's the problem, and that's a huge problem. That's a good point you bring up. A lot of people don't love the sport anymore and don't watch the sport for the sport. They watch for celebrity reasons, like this Travis Kelce with Taylor Swift situation, what's trending on social media. But no one, I think the love of the sport, and not just football, any sport in the world, I think love has been lost for sure over time.
But okay, there might be more fans now, but likes of us, we love football. There are people like us out there still watching it. I will
I'm
say,
not saying that there isn't.
I think the enjoyment of watching a match on a Saturday is harder now because there's more distractions. Back in even the 90s, before social media, you could watch a game and you were like transfixed. I find myself every Saturday watching a game and then I'm like looking at Twitter, what's happening elsewhere
But
in
that's just
another
humans
league,
in general,
another
right?
match.
Like we're so like our ability to keep focus has just gone down like as an entire
As a whole,
race.
yeah.
But I also think that could be a factor of like you have accessibility to so many games. Like let's say it's 10 in the morning on a Saturday, you might have a Prem match, you might have a La Liga match, and you might have a Serie A match that you're all really keen on watching. So you have the computers, you got the double monitor, whatever. Yeah, so it wasn't like that before. You just had whatever access you had. You're watching the West Ham Villa game because that's the one that's on.
I love it when it's just one game.
Oh, there's nothing worse than watching more than one.
Don't you now? I mean, how do you watch your games on a Saturday? Say there's numerous games going on. How are you watching your football on a Saturday?
Well, I'll usually pick the one.
Yeah,
I'll pick one game, and then I'll keep my eye on whatever else is going on if I need to switch.
So you won't be multi-screen?
Multi-screen is Champions League Tuesdays and Wednesdays for me.
You do that for that.
I can't focus.
Me neither.
Really
what am I watching at that point? I'm waiting for goals. I'm watching highlights.
With the group of death, though, and also like if Barca's playing on the same day and it's like PSG, Milan, Dortmund, Newcastle, and Barca, and like Shakhtar Donetsk, like I'm trying to get as many. Like I do 2. I can't do 3. 2 is the max.
Yeah, I love watching games and
it's tough.
And I'll focus on 1 or 2 players.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like this sounds, you're going to call me such a loser for this, but the other day I was watching Wolves this weekend, and I'm like, I'm really going to focus on Mario Lemina.
That's kind of loserish.
Why? Because you watch it, you're like, well, this player's good. I'm hearing, okay, this guy's really good. Let's see what he can do.
And what was your thoughts?
I think he's excellent. But there's a reason why he's gone around to like 15 different clubs. He's got his problems. But yeah, watching multiple games is fun and it can be exciting. But for me, I can't focus. I don't know where to look.
I'm the
like
same
we did
person.
our Champions League live stream, and I'm like, I don't know where to look.
Very stressful.
Yeah.
It's very stressful. I just let me watch the game, and then I'll keep track of everything else that's going on. If I need to switch over, I'll switch over.
Yeah.
Well, don't forget, in UK, right, that's apparent home of football, you get to watch 1, maybe 2 live games a day on a Saturday. And that's why Match of the Day is a huge program at 10:30 at night for all the highlights elsewhere.
Yeah.
So most proper football fans over there don't see far less football than we do. But they see the highlights from all the games, and the way it's put together and packaged by the BBC is amazing.
Love it.
I don't know why it's not done over here the same kind of way, quite honestly. And trust me, I've pitched it enough times.
We've talked
Do you know
about it.
what? on this past Saturday, I watched 7 hours of football straight. I was doing work in the morning, and then I realized I did about 4 hours of work while I was doing it on my computer. And then I realized I was like, I've been on the couch for 7 hours. It started at 10 with the Man U and Brighton, and I went all the way around, and I think I ended with who was playing in the Serie A the Manchester United was a late game, the Sheffield, right? Mm-hmm. Next thing I know, it's 5 o'clock.
Yeah,
and
that was
I've
a rare
watched
one, though.
7
A rare late
hours.
kickoff.
The most random game you watched this weekend?
To be fair, they were all big. I watched Man City and Brighton, took me to Chelsea and Arsenal while flipping through to Real Madrid and Sevilla. What was there was an early afternoon game? Or no, then I watched Formula 1 qualifying sprint. And then I watched Man United Sheffield. And it was just, I
asked you the most random game you watched. You named everything you've watched.
Also, UFC at the same time as Formula 1. No, it was like, for me, though, I was exhausted. I was disgusted.
I don't know whether you're the perfect woman or the worst kind of woman. I'm not sure. Right?
That's a lot.
My God. That's a lot of sport.
I was.
Do you feel bad about not getting fresh air?
I had to go for such a long walk after. It was disgusting. It was awful. It was awful.
The most just random game I watched, Roma and Monza, like 6:30 in the morning. On
So you saw Mourinho's tears?
Oh, man.
The
Roma
red card?
sucks, dude. They're such a bad team.
Who scored for Roma? It was 1-0, yeah?
El Shaarawy.
Oh, my God. You're relying on El Shaarawy. You got problems.
Well, he cried after because he was thrown at that betting scandal, and he's like, I didn't do anything.
Here's the thing.
Story.
I mean, I watched probably less football this weekend than I usually do, but then I could catch up. I caught up last night on YouTube with all the highlights. You can always find a way, right?
I'll give you that.
I watched the derby on the early game on Saturday.
I actually started with that.
So 7:30 right through, and then I watched sprinkling of soccer throughout the day. I watched the CPL semi-final, Pacific against Cavalry, and that was about it. Yesterday was weird because there's one Premier League game as well.
Yeah.
And there's a later kickoff as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So my Sunday was kind of thrown out of whack.
It depends on the match, though, because I do like watching the highlights, especially for the games you missed. But, like, there are certain games where, like, for example, this weekend, El Clasico, there's Napoli and AC Milan, I think, is playing as well. There's the Manchester Derby. Those are games that I do not want to not watch live. Like, if you don't watch them live, I don't even want to hear about it because, like, those are the ones you wait for.
Yeah,
I love. You guys don't like going back and watching games?
I can't do that.
Yeah, but
I have
it
difficulty.
depends. El
Really?
Clasico?
I watched the Merseyside derby this morning.
With knowing the score.
Yeah.
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 Really?
I fast forward through a lot of it, but
Oh, so he wasn't really watching it.
well, like 50 minutes of it I watched.
15 or 50?
50.
50?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not bad.
I love going back and watching games, even though I know what
do you
happened.
not for the big matches? Do you not want to watch them
Well, it
live?
depends on the match, but yeah.
Like,
If I miss a Spurs match, I have to rewatch it.
Of course.
Yeah, well, yeah, your own team, that's a little bit different.
Even if they lose, which is horrible.
Do you enjoy watching Spurs games? Or are you so on edge? You're so anxious.
This is the first time in a long time where I do.
Yeah.
I'm on edge for a lot of it, but this season especially, I am enjoying it. Like I'm looking forward to matches now.
Yeah, you can look forward to them. I look forward to Liverpool matches, but
Yeah.
I'm always tense. Like the one on Saturday.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
45 minutes, I'm tense.
Yeah.
And then thankfully,
a 2-0,
some
3-0.
terrible refereeing and some VAR going in our favor finally.
3-0 lead is never even enough when you're watching Spurs.
That is true.
Seriously, I'm like, oh, well, they can still come back.
What is your comfortable score with Spurs? 4-0?
Probably 4-0. Honestly,
then you can relax.
I would say 4-0. Okay, we're going to win.
That's nice.
3-0, they can still come back.
Do you actually enjoy Barcelona games when you're watching them?
Yeah,
Or you
I
tense
think
to?
I think it's changed a lot though over the years. Like there was a moment when like watching every Barca game, win or lose, it was such good football, and then we went through that kind of terrible Ronald Koeman era where it was just crap. Like it didn't matter if they win or lose; they'd win games, and you'd be like, "What was that?" So now it's finally like kind of getting back to the old ways, and it's good. But yeah, it is really tense, especially like Champions League. Like this week, they're playing Shakhtar Donetsk. I am really, really nervous about this match.
I could do without Spurs Arsenal.
Yeah, right. I can see that.
I hate it. Oh, if someone just offers, hey, 0-0, walk away.
You'll
Okay,
take
done,
it?
no problem. Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? Because that's never changed in fandom. Fans loving their teams, but being so tense during the match, they can't enjoy it. But the game's changed in so many ways. Bobby Charlton dies, and I can't help but think that Sir Bobby's gone now. Maradona's gone. Pele's gone. All these true greats. That era's gone. Now we're in this. We are actually in the modern era now. I think there's one surviving member of the England World Cup team. One, Jeff Hurst. Right? So we're in this, not to end on a low here, but it's time to kind of move forward now, right? It is the end of that. Those superheroes of the past are no longer with us.
Oh my God.
442picks.ca. Sign up, it's free, and you can win money, and that'll put a smile on anyone's face.